Now all I have to do is get the other end tied onto the throttle pedal. Welcome back to Made by J&D. I'm going to start working on the throttle pedal linkage here. From this end here, it goes through the bulkhead. Underneath the floorboards, it follows the shifting cable that I put in last episode. And it doesn't have to be quite as long. It's just got to go to the top of the carburetor, and that's not as far. And the trouble is, I couldn't find one long cable. And I probably could have found a cable that would be long enough, but it wouldn't have the ends that go on to the, adapt to the end of this throttle pedal here, and then onto a bracket on the back behind the carburetor over there. So I got two that will almost be long enough, and then I'll put some kind of linkage between them. I'll just tie them together end to end through a pipe or something to protect it, because this is not too heavy. And yeah, between these two cables, I think I'll be able to link them up. Should be fairly easy, because really I don't have to worry about any bracketry except for one on this side to keep the cable attached, fixed up in there, and then some way to link the two end to end. Let's see how we go. So what have we got here? Okay, that square end, that goes onto the bracket behind the carburetor. So this part must hook onto the throttle pedal. So I guess the first order of business is to try to get this hole straight through here. One of the things I don't know yet is, where's my throttle pedal? Here's my pedal. My floorboard is, believe it or not, is on the floor. Let me get that. These won't be the floorboards that I use. They're just something that I can use to model. Anyway, the pedal doesn't need to be about to here. The actual throttle pedal movement isn't that far. 3 inches maybe. And so, but this total movement right now is probably 5, nearly 6 inches. So I can only need a portion of that, which means that this is probably not in the right position. I'll probably have to twist this a bit to find out where that really needs to go. Before I can do that, though, figure that out, I need to attach one of these ends to the carburetor and the other one of these cables to the pedal, and start goofing around with the length of the link. Yeah, and then figure out where this needs to go. When I bought these cables, you can't find anything for a 1976 GMC Motorhome. No listings ever list the motorhome, as near as I can tell. Unless you go to specialist websites, in which case they charge you a hell of a lot of money, and I'm probably going to get these things. But the first thing that is apparent, this end and this end are different. This is the old one, this is the new one. This one just clips in to this square. It's a square hole right there. Easy. This one doesn't do that. This one, there's no way that's going to slip through there. I have to modify this bracket in some way. And the other thing is, even this one, I don't know how it went anymore. This little post here is like a 1/4 inch, but it's got this giant eyelet here. So this would have had some kind of grommet or something, spacer, that went to here and clipped on. I don't know where that is anymore. And this one here looks like it would have gone to a piece of metal, and that metal clipped on there, and it would have just been a separate piece. I've seen that. I'm kind of familiar with that. However, long enough cable, that's for sure. It's long enough. That's not going to be a problem there. And so the problem is going to be, how do I get this in the first instance to clip onto this? To modify something. This looks like it was meant to slide down into something, and there's a little nub here that would have than like been a clip, like it would have clipped it in there, secured it. Well, this part wasn't so hard. I just had to, I cut a little section to the top of this out, and this slid right in. And it should stay there all right. If not, I can use a zip tie or something to hold it in there. On the other end, I don't know what happened to the clip that I had. It was a clip, obviously there was one there when I took the car apart, but not there now. I just found some little bits of metal in my scrap piles. Two little things like that. And drilled the holes to match the end piece here. Little washer to go between them for a spacer. Clip it onto this. And then this clip here. And that should hold it good enough till I find the right thing. I had a little slide-on spring steel, but it was just for the next size up. It didn't fit on this tight enough. I think that's what came off of it. It's probably in my stuff, my collection somewhere, but this should work. Now all I have to do is get the other end tied onto the throttle pedal and figure out a way through the bulkhead and then join these ends together here. According to my measurements, this can move back about 4 inches before this starts touching other stuff inside the cab. And I don't really want the bottom of this, which is down here, to be hitting the floorboards too soon. So I'm just going to bend this back to about here, which is 3 inches, roughly. What I've got to watch for is this flat blade has to be pretty much kept straight. I can't let it twist here so that it moves around. This is where it hinges. So I've got several things to watch for here. I need to go straight back. This can't twist and this can't bend. All I have for heat is this MAP gas, but actually it's propane. That should be enough. I just don't do enough metal bending to make it worthwhile to get an oxyacetylene torch, so I use this. I don't necessarily have to get it yellow hot, but I don't want this metal to be weakened by doing it too cold or not burning it. I don't think I'll ever get it hot enough to burn it with this torch. And the reason I'm bending this is technically I don't have to. It's just that right now I want the pedal to be on the floor or just about on the floor when the throttle's fully open. And when I do that, I can see that the way it is. I can see this underneath the dash. So I just want it to stay underneath or out of sight. I'm going to take it over to the anvil and just make sure it's got a little bit of a bend. And this way too. Slot to go into there. Little pin that's got to line up. Let's get this thing just for now. Help me hold it. There you go. I didn't want to go. I need a wrench. That's all the way on the floor. But you can't see this from out here now, so that's good. My next thing is to drill this hole on this bracket, and this won't be that close. It's going to be out here. I only need 2 inches of travel or so. So I'll have to make a bracket to hold the other end of this cable. Slips into a thing that'll go behind there. And when I get it right, that'll be facing straight out behind it here. And then I can have the cable just kind of slightly bend over to that hole. That should work. I'll have to cut another hole in the bulkhead. I made this simple bracket, it's just a piece of angle. Drilled a hole in it. And I'm just going to clamp it there temporarily to see about where it's got to be so I can drill holes. So right now, the cable is coming out of the middle. It hits, that's good. And I think it'd be a good idea to just let it butt against the end of that. So let's see if I can make it do that. Come up a little bit, there we go. The cable behind, probably kind of hard to see, but the cable coming through that hole, the spring's in the way, so if I can get rid of it. That's over 2 inches. So we're good. I can place it like that. That's good. I'll probably cut some slots on this bracket so I can move it in and out for fine adjustment. The light is pretty harsh, but you can see what's going on. It stops here. I'm using that for the stop when it's at idle, and then full throttle is about here. And that's my 2 inches. There's my crude little bracket. Let's see how I did here. Gives me quite a bit of adjustment. I can move up and down, back and forth. This bracket here was actually 3 millimeters thick. This little gadget here used to be into metal 2 millimeters thick. So I had to take the flap belt sander and whatever else and actually file this down 1 millimeter to get it to fit. But it fits just fine. Actually got 2 little slots on it, and that's because this little fitting, top and bottom, has some little square, what do I call it? It's got to fit into a slot there in order for these tabs to actually be in the right place and then catch. That lines up pretty good all the way through. Tighten those bolts down, and I got this end fixed, I think. I have to go through the frame. This is the body mount bolt. I don't want to really interfere with the path or the direction of that. I don't want to bang up against the steering box here or the lines coming out of the power steering box, power steering lines. And I can't pull it too tight. That's actually not tight. The thing is, I want to go through this area because this is pretty protected. It would be best to go into here, but I still need to have access to these ends. And where's the other end of the throttle? It's over there. The other end of the throttle is behind the camera. So I'll have to have a good 2 feet of something linking these two. And I've got to have access to that. So see what I can work out. I've rerouted the shift cable a little bit where it comes out underneath the floor here. This is it. And it used to go up underneath the frame at this point, underneath the tie rod or the pitman arm. I'm not sure what that is. But now I've run it over across the top, and I wanted to do that because it's just a better way to run it. Plus, here's my throttle cable. I just run it in front of this bracket, and the bracket can come off. I can change it later. So the throttle cable comes from behind that bracket. It'll follow the frame to about this point. And then I've made this simple bracket, another simple bracket. And that'll be bolted on here in some way. Stands off about 2 inches, which matches this little standoff here. That's where the cable's coming through, plus this other little simple bracket right here. I had to, actually thought I had far enough to make sure that I had clearance. This 2-inch standoff was enough clearance to the radiator, because the radiator is going to be forward of here, and this cable is going to have to run against it, or close to it. Well, the radiator is 36 inches wide. This frames are 42 inches wide. Divide that in half. It gives me roughly 3 inches clearance between the side of the frame and the side of the radiator, and that gives me enough room for this cable to run past it. I didn't think there was going to be any force applied against this, but apparently there is. Could weld a little kind of diagonal in there and beef it up a little bit. Now let's get this working for now, and then I'll worry about the details later. So the next thing I have to do is come up with a way to join this cable with the one in the front. Joining this end of the cable and this end, that's not that hard. Made a bracket out of some, I think this was square tubing that I just cut down. And that's a link. I still have to come up with some kind of safety here. But this end, this isn't that easy. I was trying to come up with some fancy way to join this one and this end here, but because this end is just, that's off the original throttle cable. It's cut it in half. I'm using it for an extension. But I really couldn't think of any easy way to do this that was adjustable. Well, I just need to make sure I got good tension. And so rather than do any of that, I got these things. I got this crimping tool, and I got these little crimp things. These are Chinese. They go, these are 1.2 millimeter, or M1.2. I think that means 1.2 millimeter. However, that really shouldn't fit this cable, because I think this cable is 1/16. But there's a little slop in these, so I'm going to use these. I'm just going to cut this little end off, and then I'll just join the two up lengthwise. I'm just going to measure up to here, and I'll just cut the end off here, give myself a lot of room to work, and I'll join the two up. The instructions on this are pretty simple, and just use the appropriate sized hole here. The thing is, you never use the first two or the last one, not with the instructions. You're only using that one there. It says 1.5 to 2, I think. So, okay, we'll cut this one off here, nice and flat. I'm committed now, and I think just out of safety, 1 ought to be good, 2 is better. So I'm going to crimp these twice, or I'll have 2 crimps on it. The instructions just say crimp repeatedly, and that's done. We're all done. That's just taking a lot of effort. I don't recall how much effort it took when I drove it around the yard. Didn't seem like it was that much. But I've compared the existing, this throttle system that I've put together compared to what the motorhome had. The motorhome's cable was a little bit shorter, a couple of feet shorter. But then it didn't have this, I mean, this is all open. There's no friction coming from there. There's a bit of friction from this corner. Then when it turns the bend back there in back of the motor, that was always there. Perhaps it didn't, well, it would have had to come in through the bulkhead. So there would have had to been a bend. I don't know why. There are 2 springs on the throttle plate. I think that's original. Well, it is original because the motorhome, that's how it came. And plus it had cruise control. And I'm thinking it had dual springs just to make sure it would come back. You know, something to do with the cruise control, the little pneumatic cylinder back there. But I'm gonna leave it for now. That's good. I've been kind of removing some extra pipes and hoses that I don't need. This is the dipstick. Well, it used to be way long because the bulkhead to the motorhome and the grill was about here. That's where the dipstick was. I didn't need to be anywhere near that long, and even if it was, it's coming out in the wrong place. I'd probably try to replace it with one. This is a 455 motor. I'll try to find a dipstick that came off of another 455 motor, but that it'd be shorter. I can, address it, get access to it back there. So getting that out of the way, this pipe, power steering. This is the pressure pipe, still connected to the power steering pump here. Went into the power steering box here, and then the return was just a piece of tubing, and that just kind of slotted onto the return here. So I guess that'll be my next thing. Thanks for sticking with me so far. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.